Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Bad Baby. And tonight we have with us Samuel Hoffman. We are going to be updating you on the earthquake activity and what is going on around the planet. And let me tell you, we got a lot to talk to him about tonight. And again, I apologize for not being out here. Haven't been feeling the best, you guys, but I'm still going to come out here at least once a month. So check my window and see if I'm out here or not. I'll force myself to come out here at least once a month, you guys, to let you know that I'm still out here, still doing okay, and Sam's still around, and you know, to keep you up to date with my window. And hopefully in the fall, I will be back out here full time. Just keep me in your prayers, and thank you so much for all the love and prayers and good wishes that I've been getting from you all. And let's get Sam out here. How are you tonight, Sam?
I am doing wonderfully as usual, living up here in Montana, where all the rest of you people have to suffer. No, I'm joking. I mean, we're up here in Montana, so I mean everything else is downhill from here. Ha ha ha. Which is true.
Well, I mean, it pretty much covers the United States because between the heat and the flooding and the tornadoes and the storms and, oh, my God, the devastation. And not only in the United States, I mean, we're talking all the way around the world. We're going to cover some of these stories, Italy, Indonesia. Let's go into the heat and what in the world is going on. So, Sam,
well, God, let's just talk about the crops, first of all. India is reporting a crop loss this year of roughly approximately 67% in their it's their southwest region, which is the major breadbasket of India. And they have 7 billion people there. And if 67% of their crop is in trouble, and those 7 billion people are in trouble. Now, we're also seeing a crop loss here in the United States of extreme level. And there's the farm reports are also discussing a 30 to 40 day late planting season for those of the farmers that are even able to drive their tractors into their fields because of the heavy Midwest rains that have been so heavily bombarding everything. And then on top of that, we have the hurricane that is developing right now, Class 1 hurricane just over the southern banks of Louisiana, which is going to be a maintained rotational storm for the next part of the weekend and dump excruciating up to 10 to 20 inches in the southern regions, which is also crop going areas of tomatoes and everything else like that in the southern regions. So we're looking at the beginning of crop failure and extreme climate change, and there's been numerous reports of climate issues and flooding and heat waves. In Japan has had a major heat wave. It was also very, very warm up in upper Alaska for a good portion of time. When we here in Montana, we had really cold temperatures in the 60s and 50s and actually some snow at the higher elevations. There was, this week, there was a major frost freeze in South America that extended for a period of time. I never did find out the duration of how long it was very, very cold, but the Earth is wobbling. There's issues with our magnetosphere. We know that there's close passing planets. There's a whole new batch of crop circles out right now, and it's a phenomenal group of things that are occurring, including planetary passes over the top of us, close-passing asteroids, illumination, discharges from the asteroids. The Texas Cube has a mass sighting. I mean, there is so much going on right now that the pictures are almost literally confusing, and some of these I have to stare at for like an hour just to understand what is going on in some of these really awesome pics that are coming in. And I really need to thank all of the scientific citizen scientists who are reporting for Montana Skywatcher. You guys are really doing a wonderful job, and I never say it enough to say thank you, and I wanted to make sure I said it this time on the show because, without them, I wouldn't be able to culminate all of this information and be able to see what's going on around the world. When we started, speaking of which, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, and when we started doing this, I could never find any pictures that were current. Everything that I looked for in the skies to, figure out what I saw up above my house versus somebody else, like in Indiana or Illinois or Texas or wherever, or even around the world, so we could get a comparative, was 2 weeks old, and I couldn't find any pictures anywhere, and that's why, I formed up the Montana Skywatchers. and that was before, it's long before most of these new Nibiru sites and Planet X this and SpongeBob that. And anyway, I'll let you talk for a second because I need a breath.
Okay. Well, I've been posting online about there is going to be a food shortage coming towards the end of the year when crops are usually harvested. But I have already been seeing signs posted in Walmart grocery stores in the vegetable areas saying this is not available due to shortage. And
Right.
also, I had been shopping in Aldi one day, and there were several times that they did not have lettuce and some of the produce, and they said that due to shortage, they couldn't get it in. So
Well,
we're
we've been seeing
already
empty spots
seeing.
on our shelves for years.
Yes.
A good portion of the immigrant issue that's coming up to our borders and everything, that they don't get the background story. There's a climatary change going on, and then, of course, there's the economic changes going on in Venezuela and everything else. And there's so many overall crops, that the general populace grew, that this minor, to us is minor, but to them it's a huge thing. This 2 or 3 degree change in their environment has wiped out a good portion of the coffee crop. The avocado crop right now has gone up 139% in the last 2 months as far as price. And this, of course, could have something to do with the tariffs towards Mexico, thanks to the president and all this other stuff. But we're seeing the effects of already global migration because of a climatary shift. And remember, it is not just Earth that is heating up. It is all of the planets are tipped. When the second sun got here, it's like adding a big extra magnet, and it's also heating up every planet, our normal planets, and the additional planets. Well, they're pretty hot anyway, but they get an additional amount of sunlight as well, about 23%, whereas we get like 75% extra sun, because our sun is still in front of the larger extra sun, and therefore we have a reduction in overall extra. But this is part of why everything is frying, and if you look at the tops of the trees, they're frying, and we're seeing a climatary change and a huge earth wobble, and our North Pole is changing, and everybody's talking about pole shift again. And we aren't going to have a complete flip or a rollover. What we're having and seeing is an electrical change, a change in electrical properties. And a lot of folks are seeing the shaft of light where it's reaching up from up in the skies and coming straight down to the ground, and it's this big, huge, wide, light blue to light purple shaft of light. And these are ion poles between the passing planets. And we've seen nothing but representations of the illuminated skies at night. And there's a lot of people out there are wondering, well, geez, why is it still, light outside? And it's 11:30 at night, and I'm looking up in the north sky, and there's still this illumination. What's going on? Well, these planets, and we've been talking about, like we talked about this the last show, the planets had started to pass Earth. And once they go past us, that's where their facial features are illuminated, and we actually see the refractive colors of, say, for instance, Attu. And Attu is very purple, and some night you see this purple thing at night, and you don't know what it is. Well, that's a planet passing. And we've seen refractive colors of green in the night sky, and we've seen the refractive colors of this white blob, which is Attu's moon. And a lot of people are getting some really good captures. And they've got to understand these illuminations are very important, and they need to, record them and document them and send them in. And, the sixth empirical rule of science is documentation and then sharing with the public. And once we start sharing all of this information and everybody comes together on this information, then it will become accepted, and therefore it will become fact, which at 10 years, it's about time. Your turn.
Okay. Well, what has really been astounding for me to see, Samuel, is that in India and Australia, how the heat is affecting the animals. I've seen pictures where all the animals are gathered together in just big mass crowds and dying,
and dropping
from
out
the
of
heat.
the trees and dying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
dolphins
birds are
washing
dying.
up on shore and all. Yeah, and there's also been numerous reports recently from NOAA, the National Oceanic Aeronautical Administration, where all fish from the Pacific Ocean are contaminated with radioactive material now. So no one should eat anything whatsoever from the Pacific Ocean, period. And I don't
Or
frankly
go swimming. Or they're still letting people
don't
swim
even
out
go on
there.
the shore. I've seen three vids from California and two from Canada, where they're taking Geiger counter samples, and they walk up to the shoreline in California, and this thing spikes from 25, which is sometimes, that's a high background radiation at 25 millisieverts per hour, and then it runs up to 285 when they get to the dark sands at shoreline, and so that's a toxic dose. So no one should even be on the ocean whatsoever on the Pacific Ocean side of the West Coast, period, at all. Don't go to the beach. I mean, it is completely radioactive.
For God's sakes, don't. Right, and for God's sakes, don't let your children go out there and say, oh, well, I'll just let them play in the sand, because that sand has washed up from the ocean.
Right, I just went through, now 4.5 years ago, I got caught in a rainstorm because I went out into my yard, and I was moving stuff from blowing away lawn furniture. I had an umbrella outside and a chair, and I wanted to move it in off so it wouldn't go down the street. And it was that windy, and I got caught in a rainstorm. And I knew within 20 minutes after going into the house that there was something wrong, because my face and arms, and where my glasses were sitting on my face, and the water had pooled off the front of my glasses onto my cheeks, was blistering. And I had blisters on my face for a couple of months and on the scalp of my head. And for a year after that, I walked around like a zombie. And then we know that recently I had half my thyroid removed, and I have a thyroid cancer issue, and I have more polyps that I have yet to have removed. So we know. I mean, the first thing these doctors ask me is, when were you exposed to? Not were you, but when were you exposed to a large amount of radiation? So I'm an example, and everybody needs to really, really buck up on this, because they're still dumping all of this stuff into the ocean. But moving along, then we'll get back to the planets. The overall passing planets are there's 3 of them over the top of us in a pass now, and they're illuminating. And Sarah is on its way back into visible appreciation. It's showing in the crop circles that they believe it's coming back. Well, and they're usually right. Crop circles have never been wrong. And the planetary passes are changing, and we've rounded a corner, and we're seeing Uri come over the top of us during the day as well, which is the whiteout skies and the rain and all this other, and the shadowing. And, I've been wondering if many people have noticed there's this really weird, dark, milky, funky, weird sky gray shadowing going on. Well, this has been a couple of weeks now, and it's because there's planetary light cutting off. And if they see a square sun or a weird triangle or angular weird sun, it's because the planets between us and the sun are visibly cutting off a very small corridor of available light. And then this is also creating a flaring issue, which will magnify the illumination to this vastly large area of sky. And yet, if you look at the refractive nature on the light on a lake or a river, you can actually see the planetary shapes much better on the water than you can in the sky, because of the flare illumination of the light pinch, because light focals out and it'll flare because it runs in straight lines, and it'll also magnify because it goes through the atmospheres of the other passing planets. Now, I tell everybody who wants to see the new passing planets, if you look at the dark areas in the pictures you acquire and not pay attention to the sun, unless you look at the edges of the sun to make sure it's round or if it's clipped off on one side, something is blocking the light. So look at the dark areas in the picture first. And this is how we first started seeing the planets, all the way back in 2009 and 2010. And of course, I'll reiterate this for the people who don't know me very well. I've known about the planet count for many years. I know it was on the way. And then all of a sudden in late 2009, I was standing in my yard, and I watched a very large facial illumination. It was a half crescent of a very large planet going past. And to this day, I still believe it was one of the smaller planets. But I watched it go by, and I knew they were here, and that's when I started looking into this again. And then we started at Newmeyer Station. But we are coming up on the 10 years of watching this, is, with never-ending proof, match after match after match after match after match, and I can keep saying that for an hour. But we've had so much proven information, And we don't, we don't go, hey, I wonder if this could be this. We get 5 or 6 or 10 real good documented sightings. We do a comparative, and if it matches the information, then we say that, yes, this does exist. We're not calling this stuff ahead of time. We looked at the planets as they came in one by one, and when they started matching a pattern of other information from the Pleiadians, from early in 2009 Pleiadian information, and it matched that, and that's when we tagged the names. The names and all of this came from all time comparative information to prove time after time after time that this is correct. And it's become a basis of a good portion of the information out there today. Your turn. I need a breath and a swallow.
Okay, Samuel. Well, one of the things that I want to address is the earthquakes, the 2 earthquakes that just happened in California, what has been happening afterwards with the aftershocks, and also the earthquake that we had this morning in Washington State. And I want to get your I want to get your opinion on what you think we have to come, because from what I saw,
I watched the quakes this morning occur. I was online from pretty much. I get up roughly about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I start my day around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on what the worldwide news says. I'll get there sooner if there's something important. If not, then I'll wait a little bit longer. But anyway, I watched roughly 11 or 12 earthquakes. Now, a lot of people discount the earthquake total in the count because most reportings are not unless they're 3-point and above. So I watched a series of 11 or 12 earthquakes this morning happen all within an hour of each other. Literally from Seattle all the way down to California again, including Yellowstone. Now, Yellowstone has been very active. It's been putting up these immense middle range, and I'm saying middle range and immense at the same time because those two words don't quite fit together. But this is a larger than normal middle range P wave. And if you understand your geology and volcanology, you'll understand what a P wave is. And when these quakes have been going off, you have to understand subduction. When one part of one plate goes underneath another plate, the material that's being shoved way down deep underneath the other existing plate gets heated up, superheated, and melts. And then you have whatever has water in it or materials of a gaseous or to be turned into gaseous nature that boils off from this heating process of melting this land that's being shoved underneath into a hot area. Then all of that stuff boils off and pressurizes the volcanic caldera, and then you get this pressurization, which is what's been going on in Yellowstone, and it's been showing behavior of pressurization. And then they're talking about the caldera under California and Arizona. And yes, there is a huge, under Nevada, Arizona, and California, there's a huge magma caldera as well, and that's been the most recent in the United States to actually burp up. You talk about Valley of the Gods in Arizona and all of those cores that are standing there. They're a lot more recent than science really understands. They talk about them being 30,000 years old, and I'm a little bit more prone to call them maybe 13 or 15,000 years old. And we've seen lots of displays in the Mammoth Mountains of volcanic cores and recent volcanic activity where there's black lava and basalt pouring all over those mountain ranges in the Mammoth Mountain region, which is where these quakes are taking place, in the southern regions of the Mammoth. And that's all directly fresh upheaval. If you've ever flown over the Mammoth Mountains, they're very jagged and very fresh and beautiful and powerful and awesome looking, very tall, wonderful, fresh mountains. And that's what's happening there. You're seeing a chiseling of the southern part of the California that is one part of one plate, and then the facial plate is moving north, and the other part of California is moving south. And if that area of the southern region where it is having all these quakes does let loose and breaks and pushes the pressure towards the San Andreas Fault, which is a matter of series of 75 to 100 miles to the southwest of there, it could actually push and then kick another major quake, or a volcano could burp out of that hole of that shift break that's occurring. So we could see a volcano erupt there. There's been enough quakes. There's been over 10,000 quakes now. If you go through all the ranges from 0 to whatever, it's been whatever. over 10,000 quakes now, and this has been in the last month.
And what I've noticed, Samuel, is mud volcanoes are opening up around the planet. And I saw a posting today where geologists are saying they're expecting more mud volcanoes to open up.
Right.
Now, the one that I saw was in the middle of a road. The whole road disappeared,
right.
And there was actual flames coming out of that.
Anywhere within 100.
Do you think that the Earth's core is like surfacing around the planet?
Well, we know a long time ago, oh God, even 5 years ago, that we knew that the passing planets were affecting the temperature of the core of the Earth. We knew that it was electrically affecting plasma decay and radioactive decay. Were all the electrical and calculative properties were somehow a little bit different. Nobody knew why, and the planets are glowing and all this. So we know that there's core activity, and we know that the continents are sort of floating, and we know that the Grand Craton is bumping into what's going on in Washington and what's going on in California and what's going on in Texas, and like in the southern Texas region, there's lots of volcanic activity, or seismographic and geological activity underneath Texas right now, and it's been for months, if not years. And so there is a lot of changes going on. There is discussion in some groups of geological clubs. They're talking about the Grand Craton breaking from some of these forces that are going back and forth. And then we know the Juan de Fuca up in Seattle did a thing today with a 4.6, 4.7, and we know that they're downgrading all of these things, because if you look at our United States geological display versus the rest of the world, we've got these tiny little dots, and everywhere around the world it's got these huge dots all over the place, and yet time after time, month after month, year after year, we've got the tiny ones, and everybody's got the big ones. So that theirs is way turned down. And what we saw the other day was a 7 in California, and it looked to me, and I've watched these graphs for many years, it looked to me like a 10. And yet in California, because of the sandy nature and the fact that the way it's laid out, they don't really get the shaking that if that same 7 point had happened in Montana, there'd be no houses standing left whatsoever. But being the nature of the 3 or 4 or 5 plates are all jamming together from California to Washington State, because of that rumbling, it's sort of like a whole bunch of plates bumping into each other rather than hopping on the counter, because they're there and stabilizing each other somewhat by the refractive bumping into and fracturing and all this, the minutia. I mean, if this was a plate up here in Montana moving, then we'd go, way up in the air, and then everything would be flattened. But it's a different type of earthquake.
And the bad part about what's going on in California, and this is what I was thinking about the other day, is if they have these major earthquake where it causes a tsunami to come in, then first of all they're going to have to deal with the earthquake. Then they're going to have to deal with radioactive water washing over them.
Oh yeah, there's radioactive material in all of these sites. I mean, there's a couple, 2,500 nuclear facilities in the United States alone, and if we go into an off-power situation, then we're going to deal with radioactive from all of that. But I was thinking, if this does burp up as a volcano, this spot in this military base, it's a naval fly base where they bomb from naval planes, and of course nobody can go on there to see what's really happening. And then of course there's gossip about a base underground and all this being destroyed and all this other stuff. But anyway, if this were to burp up a large amount of magma, for instance, and the caldera below that area was to empty out into a certain reasonable amount of volume that would come out, then you'd actually see a structural breaking of the roof of that caldera, and you could see regions of Nevada and regions of Arizona and regions of California or whatever actually sink and break and crush in, and then you'd have ocean fill in and whatever from the Salton Sea area or whatever, because that area has been very active as well, and that doesn't get the focus now that Middle California has been because of what's going on. But the whole region is actually moving, and we're feeling. That day that 7-pointer hit, I was walking into my bathroom and I'm watching my back scrubber in my shower stall swinging, so I knew there'd been a major earthquake. And I'm up here in Montana.
They say they felt it all the way over to Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, and because I walked into the bathroom and here's my shower scrub brush swinging on the shower pole. I'm going, wow, okay, there was an earthquake, because that doesn't happen,
Now,
and
this
then I.
storm that's bearing down on Louisiana tonight, I find it interesting. I was just watching the Weather Channel about an hour ago. They said that the speed has slowed down, but the wind is still 65 miles an hour. But what
Right. Well, there's a
I'm
rotational
thinking
storm.
is, right, do you think that this is possibly being directed because the path that
No.
they're showing is going to go right over the New Madrid and right up to Michigan?
Well, now I've been watching the ground. I check ground wind and stuff all the way up until the out of the troposphere into the. Anyway, I check a lot of stuff every day. Let's just make it easy, rather than getting technical. And the ground air has changed backwards, and I've never seen it like this. And this has been literally for about a month now. Our weather and our wind has changed. There's a whole bunch of low pressure systems. Now, there's a low pressure system currently that's been nailing South Dakota and Montana and Minnesota and stuff. And I believe that's some of the passing planets in the asteroid groups. But because of these weather patterns that are occurring, it's been causing this rotational shearing, which is dragging up the trade winds into the Gulf of Mexico rather than it circulating in its norm. Now, we know that in 2010, the Gulf Stream that it used to be back in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and all the way back to the 1800s had changed from its original position. And then it came back about 4 years later, but it was never like it used to be, with the African flow and the trade winds being normal at this time of year, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's all changed. And those trade winds have changed where they used to be. And now a lot of this weather is coming up off the coast of Florida after it leaves the Gulf of Mexico and then heads directly towards Europe, where before it would go straight across to Spain. Now, because of that change, that's also introduced Icelandic changes and weather changes, and so a lot of this is planetary, and we cannot give the credit to, there's a lot of people, and I get a lot of new members, and they're always saying, well, it's geoengineering and stuff like that. They can't affect to the large volume that's going on because of these passing planets, and people have to realize how close these sky fillers are, and they're only briefly here, and they pass. It takes an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and that planet has gone from one part of the sky to the other, and they do this daily, and everybody needs to get on board with this and look at the dark stuff in the sky, and they'll start to understand this. It's not chemtrailing, it's not geoengineering, it's not ET coming in and doing this, even though we need to talk about that as well. There's been mass sightings we do need to really talk about. And these planets are so close, and there's beings that are involved with these planets, and it's right over our heads. And we've been documenting this for 10 years now, and people have really got to get on board with it because, we are not talking out our nostrils here and gossiping and saying, the faces in the sky. And you can look back at the history of Montana Skywatcher, and the accuracy ratio has been so high because we take the time to prove stuff prior to sitting there going, that's an angel, or that's a dragon, or all this other stuff that people come up with because that's the first thing that crosses their mind. And what we try to do is science. And when people get off topic, I kind of chide them, steer them back to science. Say, let's go, let's talk about stuff we can prove here. And that's how we run things. We're not guessing. And if people are new to this topic, they really need to do their homework. And it's, it's not going to be free and easy. There is no easy button to this issue. You have to start. And you have to be discerning, and you cannot listen to 90% of the crap that's on the internet.
Oh,
really.
You have to do like I say, you don't have to believe what I say. You don't have to believe what you say. Do your own research.
Right.
Well, we have a guest that has been very patiently waiting with her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Well, we better fix that.
Okay, we will unmute Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear.
Yeah. Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, Sam. This is Chris. I'm Lisa over on Facebook. I'm on your both of your Montana Skywatch, and I can't thank you enough. I started seeing the planets come in 2012. I caught them accidentally filming, and I've watched them get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I found you, and thank God I did. So I went, and we've spoken before. It's just been a while.
Right.
Anyway,
Sorry about
questions. Yeah, thank you. You're the ace. You're the expert. A lot of people out there still think, they just don't understand. They're not seeing it, and it drives me crazy when I see them filming it and they're showing. They're looking at like a little red thing, and I'm like, my God, they don't see that round planet right there.
Right, right. Because they can't perceive how large these are when they come in. They're skyfillers, and everybody's still looking at the small stuff, and they go, "Oh, look at the planets. There's Nibiru. There's Planet X," and and they're capturing the asteroids. And I'm going, no, this is the small material that is rounding underneath this. And if you look in this corner or that corner, and you see that big, dark, round-faced thing right there, that is and those are the smaller planets, because the big ones are even on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, and Saru's coming back. And Nibiru has been going over the top of our heads, and Saturn has been coming subhorizontal and then up during the night and all sorts of weird stuff. And then we also did you see any of the triangle craft and the Texas Cube sightings of the last 2 weeks?
I started seeing the triangulars huge. I mean, huge in 2016 when I was living in North Carolina. I remember talking to these people, and it's going right over us. It's huge, and I'm the only one that's seen it. Nobody.
Right. Some people they can't fathom the size of these.
Right. Yeah.
And I was outside, and we need to report this, and people need to actually discuss this, because this, we're seeing a mass sighting of a large amount of ships forming over the top of Earth. Right. And they're all attached, and I saw them in parking formation, and I saw moving vehicles, and I saw support craft for fighters and smaller ships and support square things and elongated things, and they were all parked next to the Texas Cube, and the Texas Cube was so big compared to all of those, and we know that these triangle craft are massive, 5-10 football fields long, and I'm looking at, I lost count at 20, of the Star Wars type triangular T-40 Star Destroyers or whatever the hell you call them, and they're sitting next to this massive Texas Cube, and then the side orb next to it, and they could have parked every one of those craft on some of the lower decks of the Texas Cube alone. I mean, the Texas Cube was so huge. And I saw this like a week and a half ago, and then all of these 11 videos came in on the sightings, and then everybody was talking about it, and then I heard a couple of other co-admins talking about it, and other people that had no affiliation with me whatsoever talking about it, and I just went, okay, this is a mass sighting, this is real.
Well, there's a lot of apparent cognitive dissonance, because everyone I met, I talked to about this, everybody all around the country, and family, friends, different walks of life, I don't care who they are, can talk about this, and it goes right over their head, and they go into something else.
Well, they do that because and you need to turn down your volume again, because you're starting to echo again. Just turn down your side of your volume all the way, and then listen to the phone. They run into a spot where it makes them very uncomfortable, and then they stop listening because it's not suiting what they're comfortable with, and then to them it's like, I don't want to talk about this, and then they'll shut you down and change the subject.
Yeah. It must just be too much. It's just too much to deal with, And I understand that, but.
Well, and this is why I've been talking to people about this as long as I have been, and I'm not kidding you. These are real sightings, and I've actually spoken to extraterrestrial beings face to face. I'm not channeling anything, even though I'm very good at that. And my track record, anybody that's known me long enough knows how well I can do my drawings ahead of time, and my track record is excellent, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of my members too. You guys, those members out there, and you included, have done a phenomenal job to get me where I'm at today. Because only through you people have I had the proof that what I see is true. And then because my far-seeing abilities don't mean anything unless I have proof, and we have proof. Anyway,
I have a couple questions. One is, I'm seeing a lot of red in the sky, and I don't want to assume that it's red oxide iron.
Well, Saturn is coming in on the right-hand side of the sun, and it is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm sure it's far bigger than I've seen myself personally, because I don't get a lot of chances to be outside. We've had some really cloudy weather up here in Montana, because we've had a lot of cold weather. But anyway, We know that Isatum is coming in underneath the face of Nibiru, and Nibiru is crossing over the top of us later on in the day, and then it is filling the sky and it has not been this close to us since 2012. And that's what the crop circles are talking to us, that Theros is coming back to visible, and they're going to be rotationally passing us, or actually what it is we are passing through them, because we're the smaller solar system, and we're actually passing through the larger. And it's hard to conceive, and I still don't completely understand the planetary proximity and why these are all so close to each other, because it doesn't make sense to me. And many people have asked. Go ahead.
Regarding that, you made a comment earlier about the pole shift. Do you think we're not going to have a physical pole shift, rather it's going to be like an electromagnetic thing?
Well, there is an electrical magnetic thing going on because, and this is what the Mayan calendar and all this deals with, we're going from the lower half of the galactic plane up into the upper half of the galactic plane. Now, we do this every once in a while, and we travel literally up and down from the bottom of the of our universe to our galaxy to from the bottom to the top and then bottom, and we travel sort of like a radio wave if you look at it overall in a time period thing. And I believe that the planets literally switch places and has a gravitational electrical pole opposition going on between one part of the solar system and then our other binary solar system. So I think we're switching places in our galaxy, if you understand that.
Wow. What do you think we're going to be suffering from any type of waves coming in, energy waves?
Well, we're already suffering from that, and they're talking again, of course, of some another black hole issue. And then when black holes collide, there creates a awakened time-stretching displacement between the time-space continuum, and then we get a wave past us, which has already happened in 2015 and in 2018, which could stifle some of the Mandela effect people and also bolster their opinion as well at the same time. But anyway, I believe that it's very electrical in nature, and what's going on, I think we're being affected in our brains as well with the close path of Attu's moon. And I know everybody's freaking out and acting like little children, and some of us who have got a handle on it understand why. And I do suffer from it, but it's not beating me into the wall like a lot of people I've seen. And I feel sorry for them. And they need to understand that it's 3 times lunacy because we've got a very large moon going by us that's affecting our tides. And, people have been talking about how the oceans are acting different because the mid-ocean bulge is being affected. When the planet tips and rolls, that mid-ocean, the mid-planet bulge also moves. And it'll pull a tide away from one area and put it in another. So you're going to see large ocean swells here and none there.
What's the best way, Sam, for us to be prepared? I have out bags, the whole bit, camping gear.
Understand that everything we know is about to change. The best way to look at what is coming in the future is to look at what happened in the past. And know that we need to put seeds away, we need to put stores of months worth of foods away, and know that there's a very large possibility that we might be going back to a nomadic scenario where we have to actually migrate along with the climate. And then, of course, know that there's going to be a lot less of us, because there always has been through all of these passing cycles. We know that there's a decline in the human population each and every time. And you can look up Homer and Iliad and Odyssey and Atlantis and all of that other stuff, and the Chinese flood 2 cycles ago, and the end of the Mycenaean period and the beginning of the Bronze Age, and all of this. And they all talked about these climate changes. It's also the end of the Egyptian first empire of Egypt, the first dynasty. And what they don't talk about is how Africa changed. And now that big, great desert out in Africa used to be a vast growing area. The whole northern part of Africa used to be beautiful and climate, and people grew mass amounts of grain and corn, and this, of course, corn is from South America, but other crops and oats and barley and all this other stuff. And so Egypt at one point in time was this vastly wealthy grain, beautiful country that fed millions of people in order for them to build what they build. And then when the climate change started at the end of the last cycle, right before this cycle that we're in now, they started losing it as well. And then other dynasties came back after the change of the cycle, and the people and the loss and the devastation and the plagues and the sicknesses and the earthquakes and the climate change and the water and the floods and all this other stuff.
And we need to keep we need to keep in mind too that you won't be going to the drugstore. So, you know, you can go to the dollar store, stock up on aspirins, bandages, antiseptics, peroxide, stuff like that, because, you know,
tomorrow,
yourself,
if I want
and you get an infection.
If I want to tomorrow, I can go out and I can go to the trees and I can make my own aspirin. And if tomorrow, if I have an infection, I can go to the trees and I can get some things that grow here and there to cure this infection. You need to learn about conches. You need to learn about how useful all the old medicines of the Indians were, and how they lived on bitter roots, and what grows in the swamps, and what grows here and what grows there.
Right.
And once you learn this information, then you're prepared. You need to know how to blacksmith. You need to know how to carpentry.
Yeah. And you can do a lot of that off of YouTube too, Sam. You know, I mean, a lot of people don't.
Tools.
A lot of people don't even know that the foam on the top of honey is antiseptic.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, you can just take that and put it across a cut.
Royal jelly alone is hugely powerful. Gold, salt. Salt is huge amount. You need buy that. You can for $4 you can get a big 20-pound bag of salt for your water conditioning system. And if you were to throw a thinly sliced meat in on that salt, it would dry it into beef jerky for you. And then you could be able to preserve your meats. And that stuff is really cheap. The trick is, and also you have to learn about your storage and what you store and how you store, and you have to mark your cans. You have to mark your food with a pen, because if you don't, you're gonna misrotate your stuff, and then you're gonna have rot and decay, and then you're gonna have fruit flies and problems and water leakage. And so planning your bug out, planning your camping supplies, understand that things are going to completely change. Planning extra changes of clothing for your children and your friends and your family. And if they don't plan for them. And if nothing happens, it's better to have and not need than need and not have. And then you've got a great camping supply, and then you can have a great party and say, okay, we're breaking bread for everybody. Cinnamon rolls for the world, whatever,
and it wouldn't hurt to buy a couple survival books. Because if you forget, you can always go look it up.
Right, and remember, if you can't carry it, it is not worth anything. And that's the trick. You cannot carry more than and so you have to slim down. I've started building little armor. I bought chest pads for football gear, and I thought, because I like building armor. I love doing leather work and metal work and all of this stuff. And I've made armor before, and swords and this sort of thing. And I like that stuff. And I just plan and think, and I learn my skills and hone my leather working and think about woodcraft and think about what this tree is and what that plant is and what feverfew is and what cattails are good for. You can actually eat the roots of cattails. They're like a potato. And I wish we had more in Montana that you could dig out of the ground and actually survive off of. But I was told that we would be here and then eventually would become migratory because of the conditions of us dealing with climatary change. And we have to anticipate that between now and 2050, that we're going to fry. Look what we're doing already. We're frying now. And that second sun has not left yet. And when she leaves, she's going to be emitting more light and passing by us. And what are we going to do then? What's going to happen then? And everybody's talking about, the second sun is on the other side of the planet. No, you're seeing refractive illumination of the planets as they pass. And so we're seeing light in the east at sunset. And those are the planet bases showing you. And, of course, there's so much chemtrails and volcanic ash and all this other crap and pollution in the air. And China and India are putting up so much pollution you wouldn't believe right now. It's unbelievable. And, of course, Fukushima radiation and all this shit. So we can't see. But up here in the mountains, we see better, and that's why Montana Skywatcher has been up here watching the passing planets since 2010. And other people down in the other areas don't see it as well as we do. And we've been documenting this. And I wouldn't be, doing a radio program if I wasn't absolutely sure of what I was talking about, because I'm not somebody that wants to talk about passing on, misinformation. And you know me, Bad Baby, well enough that you know my track record, and I'd like you to talk now. Talk about my track record. What have you seen?
I follow Montana Skywatcher all the time, and I follow your drawings, and I have gone out and seen things in the sky that you've talked about. So, yeah, I wouldn't have you on here if I didn't think you knew what you're doing, Samuel.
Well, point with it is I'm trying to get other people on board with this because I'm not talking out my butt here. And
Samuel, I'm telling you, it's like people are more worried about if President Trump picked his nose and a booger was on his shirt than what's going on with the world.
Really?
I honest to God, I was telling my friend the other day, I said, you know what? I could post on Facebook, I saw him pick his nose, and I'd have 40,000 people comment. But then if I tell everybody that look at this picture of what's in the sky, 1 or 2 people will go, oh, wow.
Well, and I talk about the Texas Cube and all the sightings. I mean, we for the last 2 months have seen the Texas Cube every day at about 30 sightings nonstop. And I'll go back to I'm pleading with people out there in radio land that they've got to pay attention to the fact because this is an absolute sighting, first contact of major cube things that has been here before with the Mayans and the Incans and the Quetzalcoatl, because it matches the crop circles match the exact facial identifications of this craft, and we watched it come in 2015 over the Texas Collider because it had the marker so that it could get through the Stargate, so it got here because we sent a message to them for them to come here. And this is part of the deal that's going on between our government and extraterrestrials above, which has been signed since 1947 with Ike, and this is all happening, and people really need to get, I mean, do you want me to stand in a phone booth outside of, what was that, somewhere in Arizona or Mexico, the Area 51, and scream, go, you guys have to do this, oh my God, because it's real, and it is real, they're here. I mean, oh my God, I got major worldwide sightings last week of Star Wars T-40 Imperial cruisers beyond counting parked next to the Texas Cube. This shit is real. They're here, and they're not hiding anymore. And you guys have to pay attention to this because what the hell's going to happen next? They're not hiding anymore.
Okay, Huggy, I'm gonna mute you back if you don't have any more questions.
Thank
you, Sam, for everything you've done, and as well.
Well, it's my pleasure. I do this because I want you guys to know I'm not trying to gain a bunch of fame or anything, but I've known about this for 41 years now, and they stopped me from telling you way back then. And I think really, if we'd have been allowed to know this openly, we would have been different people by now.
Really?
And I was stopped from telling you then, and when my 30-year non-disclosure agreement ended, I mean, I sweated bullets even starting to talk. And this is still really hard for me to do even now, right tonight. I mean, I spend all day worrying about what the hell I'm going to say, and oh, God, is this going to get me in trouble tomorrow?
I adamantly believe, with my research as a historian, that this has everything to do with what Eisenhower warned us about and why they killed JFK.
Oh, absolutely. You're totally right. Well, the problem with it is the treaty between both factions has been broken. There's been a group of people on the moon, and I'm calling them people even though they're not. There's been a faction on the moon. We've never been alone. We are not alone. We are watched. We are not as free as we think we are. We're not as cognitive as we think we are. I've met extraterrestrials. I know how well they read. I have been changed by my meeting, and those of you who know me can see it. And I'm not trying to be arrogant or brag or anything, but I have been affected by the changes. And I was talked to by the Pleiadian, and I was told that I would do these things, and here I am doing them. And so, I mean, I've been handed nothing but absolute, oh, my God, I can't argue with this anymore. And I've been so accurate over the 10 years that I this isn't arrogance, this is reassurance. I know what I'm talking about. We at Montana Skywatcher have done our homework, and we're proven time-proven sightings long enough that we know what we're talking about, and we have millions of pictures. And this is proven. These are real. It is happening. We're not wrong. We're not guessing. And people need to seriously get on board with this material, because if they don't, they're fooling themselves. Or go back to sleep, stick your head in the sand, and talk about what the Kardashians are doing or what Donald Trump is doing. Oh, my God.
Do they live, is there life for Nibiru?
Yes, there's 2 different races, and then there's a third added race that hangs out in this area. And then the Greys actually serve other races. They serve the higher races in order for them to get a future place to live. And by the way, guess where it is? We will end up sharing Earth in the future. So those of you who have hate and anger and finger-pointing in your attitude better really seriously reevaluate that very quickly. Otherwise, you will not survive the coming times. You have got to either be aggressive and smart and loving and concerned, or you won't make it, and you'll be wiped out along with the rest of those people that, everyone is counting on going crazy over the first God only knows what period of time until things slow down. And a lot of people talk about the mothership coming down to save us. Well, that's not going to happen until there's a hell of a lot less of us to deal with. Because if you were the Beatles and you dropped down in Findlay Park, how do you think the masses would treat you? They would rip every stitch of clothing from you, or everybody would say, oh, take me with you, or 10% would say, oh, I hate you, or 10% would do this, or 10% would do that. So they're not going to come down and save us. They will deal with us once we've gotten our shit together. And that's how it's going to happen. And this is what I was directly told. And I don't share a lot of that because I'm going to get a lot of crap for this tomorrow, and I'll be trolled for the next year over it. Your turn.
Okay, Samuel. Well, you caught me off guard here. I kind of at a loss for words, but that's all right.
Well, you're the one that's keeping the track of the time, not me, so.
Oh, we're doing just fine, sweetie, and you're doing just fine tonight. And thanks a lot, Huggy, for coming out and voicing your opinion. Stay safe where you are. We'll keep you in our thoughts. And great questions, by the way. Thank you. Samuel, we have time, though, right? I mean, everybody's like running around like the sky is falling. I believe we have time, but I think that we're going to go through a lot of weather anomalies, and that we have to prepare for that.
Yeah, it's only going to get worse, and you have to look around and survey your surroundings and say, okay, what, I've bought a whole bunch of brand new tarps in case my roof gets ripped off, and I've got no place for my children to sleep, and and that kind of thing, so we can make a tent. I just view it as like I'm going to be shoved into camping the hard way, whether I like it or not. I'm going to have to cook outside and figure out how to do whatever, and my house may not be here. Now, we don't know what's going to happen. We know that there's going to be extreme change. So try to account for that. Try to, ropes and tarps and camping supplies and a little white gas on hand and a whole bunch of rice and things that are dried that you can easily store, and then pack it all in one bug-out area. Don't keep it outside. Don't put it in your car because it'll decay from heat and cold. Keep it in your house in a central place where it's warm like you are, but yet cool and dry. And I think
we should also have more than one plan. I mean, have a plan A, but also have a plan B.
All right. Well, plan B is, I was told, and I really hate to even throw this out there, I was told that up in the area that I live in, which is why I'm here, would be safe, and people would come toward me seeking this unification of like-minded people. So if all else fails, and I'll throw this out there, and if you're standing in the middle of the country and you have to travel and you're able to do so after the shit has hit the fan and God only knows you survived through it, come on up and find me in Montana and we'll do the best that we can. I don't anticipate a great number of people to show up, but I was told that people will over time look to me, which is what's happening right now with my 10,000 members and the people that do trust me and love me and protect me. And I thank all of them for the protection they have given me in the past against trolls, and I got a lot of them. We just had another big group attack again from the people who used my old videos, which is why I don't do facials anymore, because they black out my teeth and cross my eyes and put sorts of... Are you still there? I heard a click.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I just had to check because I heard a large click. And I've been being major trolled again as usual. And I'm only doing this to try and help people because, yes, I was recruited by the government to be a farseer because of my high physics skill, my high IQ. I have a very high IQ. I was rated as smarter than Einstein. I figured out equations that Einstein could never complete. And I do this because I've known about it for a very long time, and I was told I could not. And then finally, when I was allowed to, that's why I'm doing this. I'm not making any money off this, although it's been very nice. Some people have helped me out with some donations recently, and it's really helped. And I am actually calm for the first time in a very long time while paying for internet services and computer after computer to keep doing this, which has cost me a fortune. Anyway, God, I said that in all one breath. I need a breath here. Anyway, the point with it is I'm doing this for everyone because it's the truth, and we have worked on this information. It's not hype. I'm not guessing. I'm not creating fear porn. I wish to hell people would listen better than they do, and they're not, and they really need to get on board with what the hell's going on with these passing asteroids. Oh, my God. And all these discharges and storms and all this freaky shit, which are, blasting people 6 and 8 and 23 people at a time with these discharges, and realize this is really happening. It's real. Planets don't crash into each other. They repel. But the other shit falls off and hits us. So we've got to, we have to pay attention. And it's happening. And it's not stopping. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
Sammy, why are we having such bad flooding all the way around the planet?
Well, because the passing planets and the asteroids, as they go pop, they're pulling up this gathering, this asteroid group is pulling up weather and everything. And it's dragging. No, I have no idea, sweetheart. I'm sorry, I got to talk to my daughter. It's dragging weather, and our tipped Earth is behaving differently, and we're also getting extra heat, and so we've got this boil-off going, and all these weather patterns are enhanced, and we're seeing on-land hurricanes, and we're seeing all of this moisture. Is because when these planets come by, they pull up atmosphere, and it pulls up to a certain distance, and when they leave, all of that stuff that's pulled way high in the 60s and 70,000 foot altitude is being dropped down. And this is why we're seeing softball-sized hail and a year's worth of rain in 10 minutes. It's because they're pulling all of this atmosphere up, including ocean drag-off, and it's dragging it up into the atmosphere, and when these planets pull away from us, it drops from the ionosphere into the troposphere and just, and then dumps a lake, like Lake Superior. Here you go. Boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a posting. Yeah, I saw a posting the other day where there was hail the size of your fist in Italy.
Right, which means it has to be going way, way, way up there. And, I'll reiterate that thing about where they talked about that the storm height was pulling debris, 40 and 50 and 60,000 feet into the air. And then I have to remind people that our atmosphere only has weather up to 13,000 feet. So we're talking 40 or 30 some odd thousand feet of extra pull going way up to where? Well, the only thing that's going to do that is a passing body that is pulling it up there. And there's nothing, there's no way that our weather is going 65,000 feet by itself. And that's another example of proof that, yes, this is happening. And we've had numerous examples over the last 10 years, including the magnetosphere on Earth, which keeps acting like we're getting stellar material hitting Earth when there is no coronal mass ejection hitting Earth at the time, and which tells you then it's got to be another body with a more powerful magnetosphere affecting the electrical out exterior of Earth with their electrical exterior. If we're not getting stellar material, then it's got to be something else. And people don't put that together. They just say it's happening, and then they go, I wonder why. Well, it's because something has to be doing it, and that's an exterior body. And we've seen evidence of ion bleed off between larger bodies and smaller bodies, where with the electrical material is the magnetosphere of that body is larger than the other smaller body, and it actually pulls electricity away from it. And that's where you see the illumination of the blue light, and it's like a 4-foot office tube lighting, because the ions are accelerated, and accelerated ions illuminate. And there's your answer
Okay.
as to why. Go ahead.
Truthbug wants to know what you see coming with the lunar eclipse in a few days.
Well, what's really odd about that is they're talking about the moon being 135,000 miles away from Earth right now. And in my old world, back when I used to read books, the moon was 265 to 285,000 miles away. Excuse me, what happened to that 100,000 mile difference between the Earth and what they're currently talking about? Now, maybe this person was wrong, the last person that I read, but the moon is acting really weird. I don't pay a lot of attention to it anymore other than to watch its space, because if the moon changes its space, it's Earth rolling, not us. Or, I mean, not the moon. It's us, not the moon. So the lunar eclipse can be something else coming in front of it, which is entirely possible, because we've seen evidence of the object cluster group and the lead asteroid and the other ones coming in front of everything between us and the moon, because it's facial and it's way close, and we're talking 65 to 85 to 90,000 miles away or closer, and where they're actually discharging on Earth. Now, we had an event here a few weeks ago back east where they were having discharges that was reaching up with upward lightning, which never used to exist until the planets got here, and because lightning usually goes down to Earth. And,
well, they say that the earthquake, the 7.1, exposed a new fault line. Did you know that?
Well, that fault area has had repeated chippings. And all you have to do is look at the geography and the topography, and it shows that it's repeatedly fractured and chipped, and it's shelled off the bottom chunk, and it's shucking its lower area, because half of California is headed one direction, and the other half of California is headed the other direction, and that's the two tectonic plates. One's heading south, and one is actually heading north by northwest. And they're rubbing together, and that's where you have the San Andreas Fault, and the great giant trees and the redwood forest is all from an island and that used to be sitting up in the middle of the ocean, 500,000 years ago, that was completely biologically cut off from the rest of the planet, and that's why those trees are the way they are. And they've jammed into the North American continent some 300 or 30,000 years ago, depending on which archaeologist or geologist you talk to.
Well, I think personally, I think that the lunar eclipse is going to cause more earthquakes, and I think that also it's causing people to be a little woohoo, because a lot of people right now are even posting that they're feeling down and depressed, and
like me, for instance, my back is killing me, because we have the lunar effect of Atu's moon, which goes by every day, and it's only here for a brief period of time, or an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm sure that has some barometric pressure effect. I'm sure it has because my back is killing me, and I haven't done anything other than sneeze a couple of days ago that would cause this, but I'm sure a lot of people are feeling the effects of this, and you have to remember to rise above it, and it's not real. This too shall pass. And think of the Tower of Babel syndrome, that our brain water is being, the water on planet Earth is being affected, and so is the electrical, and so is the subatomic and the astroatomic. And so you have to remember, when you're feeling down, this is an exterior influence. It's not me. It's not real, and you'll ride through it. And that's what you have to do. You have to rise above it.
I've been with meditations. Especially when I'm sleeping at night, get your headphones on and
go outside barefoot, walk around, put your toes in the grass for 10 minutes, and Om chant.
Exactly.
Bring a tone to your, go Om, and that vibration in your body, and then feel your feet, and Mother Earth will talk to you and fix you.
Well, a really good meditation is the Healing Chapel. Have you ever listened to that one?
I do Om chanting a lot at 500 and some odd hertz and stuff, and I listen to a lot of sitar music and Eastern
because you have to raise your vibration and stay hydrated, people. That's another thing,
water, very important.
Stay hydrated, especially it's been so humid and hot. We lose water without realizing it, and then that will also make you feel down.
Harmonic elevation is very important if you expect to ascend and you want to change and you want to rise above these coming times. You cannot do this without growth, and you have to self-examine. It's really uncomfortable, too. I mean, you go through a lot of really uncomfortable parts, but the idea is to clear your shelf, and you may behave like a child and have tissy fits and from hell, but to understand that you're going through this for a reason of growth. We're clearing our shelf. We're moving forward. We're evolving. This extra sun is doing some really cool stuff, and the more you believe and the more you study and the more you research, the truth will come to light before you. You will know the truth. You will know the path. You're not late. You're not in a hurry. You don't have to catch up because you're within your time period. And those who are supposed to awaken will. So you have to believe in this. And once you start down that path, you'll have a level of enlightenment. And before you know it, you'll start to see the truth of what is real and what is not. And then before you know it, you'll be able to see the charlatans and the fakes and the phonies. And you'll be able to feel it and trust yourself. Yourself knows better than anyone out there. And you have to reevaluate things. Okay, hold on. You talk for a second. I got a child talking to me.
Okay. Well, I want to address something that Huggy Bear brought up about the no one will believe her or no one even cares. Huggy Bear, just worry about yourself. We
have to worry about other people around us, too. We have to give that a little bit of extra because it will carry. And that's important now, especially because we know that the dark factions are so powerful, but we don't give them any credit whatsoever because that is their power, is the fear ratio they can cause within us. So we have to stop worrying about the geoengineering, stop worrying about chemtrails, stop worrying about the bad factions that are out to get us, or if our phones are being cut off or tapped or whatever. Just blow that crap out of the window and start being forward for your own personal development, for your own learning process. And then you're free of the negativity they're trying really hard to give you to keep you down. And the longer they can keep you fearful, and if you add them power, they're geoengineering our world right now. Oh, my God, what do we do? We're going to be killed. And then you have no power. Don't give them that power.
So what if we get killed? I mean, life goes on the other side.
Well, shit, yeah, right. You're better off when you don't have to deal with, scraping for that 4 kernels of oatmeal laying on the ground that somebody missed. Oh, my God.
You mean, Tammy, you're going to take my last 4 kernels of oatmeal?
Yeah, it's mine. The seagulls on Finding Dory. Mine. I mean, I can't even imagine being a refugee right now trying to go from Istanbul up into Turkey or into Europe, and try to work. I mean, can you imagine trying to walk thousands of miles just to get someplace where you can actually feel like somebody's not going to skin you?
Yes. This whole planet is like it's gone mad. I mean, the things that have been going on here in Michigan, people shooting each other, some guy shoot his mother. 4th of July, this guy in the next county over, he got upset because his neighbors were having a barbecue and shooting off fireworks. So he came outside and started shooting into the crowd.
That's over the edge.
He shot a 12-year-old little girl and a 62-year-old woman that was just recovering from a stroke. Thank God it was just in the arm and in the leg, but still. And so what does he do? He barricades himself in when the cops come. For 5 days, they're in a fight with him, shooting at each other. The woman that was in the house with him must have tried to stop him from doing what he did. He killed her, and then eventually he killed himself.
Well, people are pushed over the edge, and what we have to do is refocus our efforts and stop saying that, okay, it's this person's and that person's fault. We have to stop finger pointing. And then we have to really refocus as to what is causing the problem. And the problem is that, A, we're not focusing on the mental health issues. B, we're not focusing on the basic needs of people these days. And we're talking about corporate profits being more important than whether or not kids eat. Trump spent $5 million for his 4th of July parade. And
that took care of a lot of homeless people.
Yeah, we could have fed a couple of states over that one, and $3 million every time he goes to play golf, and we've stopped talking about that. So it's incumbent on all of us to correct this. We're all guilty of it, allowing this, where we should be talking about this. We should be discussing the fact that there's a mass fleet of alien forces. Now, I'm not going against them, and I'm not finger-pointing, because I have actually met a Draco. They own us currently, so we're not going to fight our owners. There could be a diplomatic approach, I think, which is what my job is. And we're going to have diplomacy work its way in the near future. But the point with it is we can't finger point at any faction, because we don't have all the evidence, we don't have all the proof, and most of this is conjecture and hype. But we have to think logically, because we are responsible for the outcomes of the future. And if we don't get a handle on it, then who are we going to blame but ourselves? Because if we allow it, we allow it. So we got to stop allowing it. And we got to start making things change ourselves. So you have to be the change you seek on a daily basis in your environment, and approach the people around you, take better care of them, even if they don't deserve it. And which is what I attempt to do by communicating with people, even though I've run into some people who have downright just argued with me, and I've tried to even help them, because even if they've been rude. And the point with it is I'm trying to help, and yes, I can understand you're mad at me for the information I'm giving you, but I'm doing this only because I care, not because I'm trying to be right. Because I would rather be wrong. That none of this shit is happening. And I would rather not have ever been involved in any of this in the first place, and yet it's eaten up a good portion of my life. I have no choice but to deal with it, because it's what I know. And so therefore I share it.
Well, in view of how bad I have been feeling health-wise, I've considered just giving up doing my shows completely, but I just can't. I just
go sit on the porch and take your shoes off and put them on the ground, and you have a glass of wine, and you talk to Mother Earth, and you say, "Okay, Mother Earth, I know you raised me and brought me into this place, and now I want you to connect to my feet and give my head what it needs," and it will.
Exactly.
And that's what you do, is you ask and you shall receive. And the trick with grounding is it turns on those unused portions of the brain. And then before you know it, the problems that once before, which were so difficult to solve, become easy. And then all of a sudden you're thinking...
My problem, Samuel, is being targeted. It's distracting. It's hurting me, hurting my home.
Is there some other way that you could be voicing your opinion? Is there a different way that you could phrase these issues without having someone come back in a retaliatory behavior towards you? And I rethink this all the time. How can I communicate with people on a different stage where they're not going to shut me off, and they're going to understand the level? Because granted, I'm being told recently that I'm throwing stuff at people at such a regular magnitude they don't even understand it, when I thought everybody did. And I have to still lower what I'm talking about, and because I'm throwing so much at people, they can't understand it all. And I'm sorry that they don't have the same science education that I do, but I've self-learned most of it. I've learned more since leaving school than being in school. And I was, of course, approached by the government back in 1979, 80, and for my papers, because I know things other people don't. Because to me, it's basic and easy, and to them, it's not, and it's confusing and hard, and to me, it's just like, I can't believe you can't see this. It's so basic, it's easy. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is people really need to get on, and I can't say, hey, you better listen to me, but actually, hey, you better listen to me, because we've proven this. We're coming up on 10 years now, and I mean, how many pictures do you need? How much proof do you need? It may be difficult for you to understand, but we're dealing with this, and it doesn't suit. I'm not making $8.95 per subscription, and your monthly $30 donation or anything like that. We're doing this because it's proven to be the truth for year after year after year, and this is, of course, why I'm talking about it, and why I keep doing shows, so that everyone will get on board with this and know that this is actually happening. It really is. And there's no other way to describe it, especially with this the grouping of ships. I mean, my God, I sat there and I lost, count 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And went, oh my God, look at that. And those are all those big, huge ships. Oh my God. And I sat there for almost an hour watching. And this wasn't a 5-second glimpse. This was me standing out in my yard for an hour watching all those ships next to the Texas Cube going, oh my God.
Another thing I want to address tonight, Samuel, is the insects. Have you noticed that in certain areas the insects are behaving just, they're swarming, like the bees are swarming on cars? And, there was...
And this is what I talked about earlier. We have the light change that's going on. If you look at the shadowing in some of the videos that people, when they're standing in front of the camera and they're talking, and off to their left shoulder, it's really dark. And off to their right shoulder, it's really dark. And yet there's a little bit of light in the middle, behind, and then everything looks weird. And that's because our light is being pinched off, and these animals are behaving differently. The bees are flying because their light is half gone. They can't see as well as they used to. And it's in a spectrum that they're not used to, because we have that extra red sun, and our yellow sun puts off this spectrum, and that red sun puts off that spectrum. And you start cross-cutting it off with a planetary cutoff, where a planet comes in front of it, and you've got all this weird shadowing, and the bees don't understand what they're seeing. So they drop down to the ground because their light is messed up, and they know it. And I've been watching it for the last few weeks going, oh, you can tell. And if you look at radar, and all of a sudden the West Coast drops into shadow, where the East Coast is still illuminated, which is the opposite of the sun rising and setting. The sun rises on the East Coast and it's dark in the West Coast, and then it sets in the East Coast, on the West Coast, and gets dark in the East Coast. And where all of a sudden the West Coast goes dark and the East Coast is still illuminated, well, that tells you there's a planetary cutoff of shadowing going on. And we've talked about that for about, 5 years now. And there's numerous examples of proof that there are things between us and the sun blocking our light. And people have really got to get on board with this, and this is what's going on. And yet it's been happening so long that most younger adults believe this is normal.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I think wouldn't be surprised that we are going to start experiencing is power outages and internet. I've seen people already say I didn't have the internet all day. You know.
Right. We're seeing a breakdown in internet services now. It could be attributed to two separate things. It could be, or three. It could be a stellar solar issue with the two suns and separating, because we're looking at some interesting cyclic behavior, because the other day it was just in the red. And there could be the passing planets changing our magnetosphere, which is affecting our electrical capacity. And it could be a number of factional visitors who are stifling our media prior to invasion, or it could be our local government realizing that everything is showing so hardcore that they completely don't want us to talk, so they're shutting us down, all the way down to some unknown geological behavior which is causing EMPs on its own.
Okay, well, Huggy Bear has her hand up again, so let's see what she wants.
Thanks, Bad Baby. Sam, the second sun and the light coming in and the electromagnetic waves. Does this have an effect on some of us, our perception in this reality, this third dimension?
The second sun has to do with the living ascension, and it's creating that mystical ghost attachment in our DNA strands, where we're supposed to. This is, of course, the gossip or whatever, where we're supposed to go from our 2 DNA helix to an opposition or a possibility of 12 DNA helixes.
Oh.
And now it is believed that this attachment of the second sun will create a ghost attachment, which will allow us to self-heal and grow our evolution, to grow those missing other DNA helixes, which are responsible for the very long-lived alien genetic structure. saying that we are evolving, and so we are, and this is what those other groups of extraterrestrials are all here for, is the attachment of the second sun as well, because it's a mass evolution, because all animals, all insects, all trees, everything is now mass evolving because of this additional second sun, because it's the ghost attachment, because it creates this additional electrical connection. So we're connecting to our cosmic self as well as our regional self. Do you understand?
I'm there. I'm feeling it. I felt it today.
And the more you reach for that, the more that you believe in that, the more you reach for your inner old soul and your old cosmic self, the more it will work.
Wow.
And it's a level of acceptance. You allow the old soul to come in from the past, because time is in a loop. It's connected to the past as well as to the future. And if you allow the old soul or the old self to come and speak, it will. And you can't fear it, and it's difficult. I was talking about astral projection and stuff earlier today, and how I'm uncomfortable with astral projection because I always feel a presence. And this other person whom I trust and value their opinion very much was discussing that it might be me that I feel there in the astral area, my older self, and I'm fearing myself. So, I mean, that's something worth discussion and self-searching and everything else. But there's so much more to what's going on than just the planetary thing, because there's the cosmic, there's the metaphysic, and you have to be very careful with who you believe and what you believe, because you can go overboard. But then there's also some factions of negativity which can take control of you if you reach too far in the wrong places. So I express caution. If you're going to reach for magic and you're going to reach for spiritual enlightenment, you have to be very careful. And you have to cover your mouths, and you have to ask permission, and then you have to be safe, and you can't be arrogant, and you can't be crazy. And you have to learn about Wiccan beliefs, so mote it be, so you ask the permission so you are safe, and you have to protect yourself in anything that you endeavor to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Believe, and you are the best judge of quality, because, of course, the only representation of anything you're going to ever experience is through your own eyes. And if you trust what you see and are careful in your documentation of the events of your personal enlightenment and meditation skills, and realize that Mother Earth is actually an electrical machine, and she will talk to you if you let her. And you just open yourself up, and then all of a sudden things start to change. And then new things happen, including emotional distress and some, clearing of the old shelves, as they say, to get rid of some of this bad manifestation. Because we can't live in the past. We cannot live in the future. We can't worry about what's coming. We only have to worry about the now. And then if you do that, then all of a sudden you have a power and a level of expression and enlightenment that you've never understood before. Because you're living now, and you're listening to what everything around you is telling you, rather than worrying about what you did in the past or what might happen in the future.
Advice well taken. I can't thank you enough, because I'm there. Appreciate it.
We can't live in the fear of what's happening. We have to express and enjoy the enlightenment of what is occurring before our very eyes. Just like in the movie, what was that? Where Crazy Larry was standing on top of Yellowstone up in his camper, and he was standing there broadcasting to the world as Yellowstone blew and the lava and the ejected destroyed him. He's going, "It's so beautiful." You just have to enjoy, the asteroid that's coming down and vaporizing you, and just go, okay, here we are. Let's do this. Okay. Because it is that powerful and it is that beautiful. But if you run into fear, then you're running yourself down path, and you're wasting your energy, and you're getting exhausted, and you're getting mad at your neighbor across the street because their water's running down your sidewalk, and and you can't live that. You have to live the experience of the learning, and you can't live in the negativity. You have to live in the now and the scientific beauty of what you're observing, rather than
the bad thing is TV and neighbors that are like that guy that was crazy. They try to force their negativity on you.
Right.
It's hard for you. Yeah, the drama. You just got to refuse to accept it. And you know what? If all hell's breaking loose around you, just go into your own little world and try to be in your own happy place. That's
if
the
you're
only way I
informed as
have
to
learned to
why,
survive.
if you're informed as to why the world is going to hell around you, and those around you are not, they're going to fall apart, and you're going to go, well, because this happened, and they're going to look at you and go, God, you know what you're talking about, and before you know it, they're going to all be on your side, going, this guy or this person, this lady knows what the hell they're talking about, and as long as you hold your cool, those who are falling apart around you will flock to you, because you're calm and you expected this to happen, so the shock level is going to be far less. We know that there are coming times. We know that global warming, it's not global warming, it's all the planets are heating up. Everything's changing. We're going through a major experience because these planets are passing each other. They're affecting each other. We're having extreme weather. We're having hot, hot, hot. We're having cold, cold, cold. We're having no water. We're having too much water. We're having loss of crops. We're having people behaving poorly. We're having all of these incumbent behaviors that are going off, and we don't understand why. Well, the trick is to step back from it and watch it happen. And then you start to see the pattern. And then when you see the pattern, you'll see all the pieces fit together, and you go, aha. And then you don't fall apart like everybody else around you is.
And don't let people tear you down. Learn to love yourself. Love yourself no matter, none of us are perfect. We got to love ourselves. And when we love ourselves, that love projects out to others, and you can help others. And then that shows more for the planet than to tear each other apart.
There isn't anything we can't do if we just drop our head to the wind and just step forward into it and do one step at a time. And then, when everything starts to fall apart, well, the first thing you got to do is make sure, A, that you're dry, B, that you're warm, C, that you eat, D, that you go to the bathroom. Extra toilet paper. Oh, my God, extra toilet paper. Anyway, you be a king. Here, I give you a roll of toilet paper. I am gifting you. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And plan these things out. Think about this stuff. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? If you've got 65 people, where are you all pooping? And then you have to have a community leader that's going to get somebody together to dig a big enough hole so you don't poison your water supply. You don't want cholera in the camp first thing.
Learn how to build an outhouse.
Oh, and bigger than that, learn from the Romans. The Romans, oh my God, they did such good work, and this is literally, and then you have to start thinking in that manner, and this is where writing skills and all occurred when civilization rebooted, and this is what you're going to have to think, is how do we reboot civilization? And this is, of course, what I've been studying for, and why I say to people, well, if everything goes to hell and you got no plans and you can't make it, well, come up to Montana, because here I am. We're going to start society over again. We might have to migrate and walk 300 miles to do so. But, I know where a lot of potatoes are.
Here's another thing that I noticed, Sam. There's been a lot of airplanes that have just been, like there was one the other day, it just dropped 100 feet turbulence. Did you see that where the people went flying up into the plane?
Yeah, into the ceiling, roof? And that's because...
Yeah, they all had neck braces on when they got off the plane.
Well, I've got some programs where it allows you to look at different altitudes and different wind patterns, and you should see what's going on the South Pole, and you should see what's going on the North Pole, and you should see what's going on at ground level, and you should see what's going on at 500 meters, and you should see what's going on at 700 meters. I mean, this is weather that we've never seen before. And I check this stuff, and I've known about it since the 90s. I used to record VHS weather tapes.
And the smallest ones are crashed. Did you notice that?
Well, it's because they're getting slapped out of the sky because everything
That's
above...
What I thought. That's
everything
what I thought.
above 13,000 feet is...
Helicopters and small planes, bam, they're coming down, baby.
Right, and not only that, our GPSs are off, and they called that a month ago where they had to reset all the GPSs because Earth tipped. Earth is moving, and they're not telling you that, but that's what's happening. They had cancellations of flights worldwide because they had to reset the monitors on all the GPSs because we moved in one day, and which is still going on back and forth, and why, these people at fishing villages, they get up in the morning and they go out to the shoreline to get into their boat to go out and fish for breakfast. And their boat is sitting on shore and they can't see the sea at all as far as a mile away. And they're wondering where the hell the ocean went. And meanwhile, on the coast of Brazil, all of a sudden the ocean has risen 60 feet in one day, and they don't know why. It's because the mid-ocean bulge is changing because we tipped, and we're moving. We're tipping back and forth, and when these planets come past us, they shove us out of the way, and sometimes we tip, sometimes we spin, sometimes we do this, sometimes we do that. And then underneath these passing planets is all these electrical asteroids, which are hanging out underneath between Nepesity, Atu's moon. There's a group underneath them, and there's a group underneath Uri, which is now coming back in because we're seeing Uri pass Earth, and we're seeing the whiteout skies and all this crazy weather and the bubbling mantis clouds. And this is just happening just like the last 3 or 4 cycles, where every year, and this time they're way closer than they were last year. But it's the same
now,
thing.
Now, that one picture you had on Montana Skywatcher, let me see if I can go over there and get it. It showed the bubbling clouds, but they were all real dark red. What the heck was going on with that, Samuel?
Well, we have refractive coloring coming from when Saturn is on the right-hand side of the sun, everything is turning red from a certain sunset point of view. We've had purple, we've had green, and these are all refractive. Now, a lot of the light on our moon, for instance, there's a great example. Our moon actually isn't illuminated, but what it is, it's illuminated from the refractory light off the face of planet Earth, which is why most of the time we can see it, because it's close enough that our light still shines on it. Otherwise, we'd never even know we had a moon. Most of the time, we'd be no moon, no moon, no moon. Oh, there it is. But it's close enough so the refractive light shines on that. And a lot of that happens between the other passing planets as well. One night you'll see really, really red skies, and one night you'll see really, really purple skies. Or one night you'll see green, green, green. And that has to do with how the light is refracting off of Earth or off of the planet and then hitting Earth, or vice versa, back and forth.
What about these pictures where it looks like there's yellow stripes in the sky?
A lot of it is yellow because Saturn's yellow moon is causing some of the ion trail. And then Atu's moon has also got some stripes and a ring. And Atu has a ring. And so some of these, the yellow, if you're looking underneath the bottom of a planet, in a lot of cases you're seeing 3/4, if not 90% of it as being dark facing, where you're looking at the dark side and you're only seeing a minor crescent illumination at the angle of what you're viewing from where the sunset is, and then it's the side of the planet, so you see illumination. Now underneath that, when the asteroid cluster groups, or the rings, or the debris fields from the asteroids, is down below the planet and yet still being illuminated post-sunrise or at sunrise, you're seeing an angled light that shines on the objects that are below the passing planets, and you'll see an illuminated blue or a light or white or green or purple or white face. And yet you'll see a yellow group of clouds, which is the asteroids, because they are illuminating off the yellow moon of Saturn, because it does add a yellow, and our yellow sun also adds the yellow. So what it's doing is it's illuminating and showing you objects underneath the passing planets, but they're yellow illuminating because they're between Earth and the passing planets, and the sun may have gone down, but the refractive angled light is still showing on the object underneath these planets. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, why don't you tell everybody, if they want to send you some pictures or donations, how to get a hold of you?
Well, if you would like to join, go to Facebook. If you'd like to join Montana Skywatchers 2, one is usually for the older members who have a little more science under their belt. It's also it's a private, but I've never deleted it, but it's a private. And we started out that way. But anyway, go to Montana Skywatchers 2, or type my name, Samuel Hoffman, HOFMAN, 1 F instead of 2. It's the Dutch version instead of the German, into YouTube, and you can see all of my videos. There's a lot of lost material, sadly, due to an issue between a co-admin. Anyway, or if you want to talk and write me a question, P.O. Box 625, Lolo, Montana, L-O-L-O, Montana, M-O-N-T-A-N-A, 59847, or you can send me a donation, $10, $20, $1, or $1 million. I'd love to have a philanthropist that wants to fund an entire, I'd like to hire some people and get a whole team together, because believe me, we could do some great work. But, contact me. I'm also in the phone book if you really need to look me up. But YouTube and Facebook are the best place. And Montana Skywatcher, too. Join. I just about let everybody in there. I'd like to see your face as being a human being instead of a club or a group or a blank, anonymous. I don't let those guys in. But if you want to contact me, that's the best way. Or go to my Facebook page, Samuel Hoffman. And any donations would really help because I'm a poor guy. And I got 2 kids. And anything you can send this way, great. P.O. Box 625, Lolo, Montana, 59847. Anyway, that's the whole ball of wax. And we've been doing this long enough.
Good to hear that you got your car. You got a car, Samuel.
Yeah, the car got fixed. The cat is still alive. The cat is actually still alive. We had a little deal where I had a fundraiser because our poor cat was dying on us, and she ended up with a tumor in her uterus, and she stopped eating and became this skeleton and this poor crying thing. And my daughter loved her so much, I had no choice but to try and help it. Otherwise, we would have let it pass. But we saved it, and that was a little over $2,000. And so, and I don't have any money. And then some nice people came forward and helped us out, and we managed to save that cat. And I got my car fixed finally. They ordered the parts wrong twice. And so, I'm in a happy spot because my members and my friends have actually been very, very wonderfully kind. And I would love it if anybody wants to send me, even $5 helps. I mean, oh my God, I'm pretty much retired the hard way, and I do this for you guys every day for the last 10 years. And I'm not expecting money, but the point with it is it really helps. But I do this for you guys because I care about what's going on. And I was told I couldn't do it for so long that, by God, I'm going to do it. I want you folks to know what's really going on up there. And Montana Skywatchers has done this long enough that we're not guessing anymore, and we're not making crap up, and we're not causing fear porn or hype. As a matter of fact, most of the time I try to temper it down a little bit, but yet at the same time, I wish people would react as they need to react about this, the ET sightings, because we've never really had any major sightings, and they've been coming in for a little over a week now. That yes, this is real. So, and I'm a little concerned about a mass group of alien spacecraft appearing over the top of Earth. Are we going to have some sort of invasion, which they don't really have to do because they already own Earth? But the point with it is it seriously, it requires people taking note that something's really changed because they're not hiding anymore, and that's so dramatic in comparison to what they have been doing for the last 3 to 4 years since the Texas Cube's arrival. And we've guaranteed and watched that as well, and we've seen the sightings every day. We do this every day, and we've watched this thing for years, so this is all real. And if you have any doubts, look up this background information. If you catch me in an error, please let me know. I've made a mistake. I would like to know if I've made a mistake. But it doesn't happen very often because we rely on the source reporting, and when we get numerous sightings, then it becomes factual. It's proven, and we can't argue with it. And these people aren't guessing, and it's from around the world, and they're good members, and they do hard work, and they do great work. Your turn. Time for an Altoid.
Okay, well, I'm getting a little bit tired here tonight, so I think I'm going to stop a little bit early. But I do want to thank you for coming out here and sharing with us, and especially last minute calling and having you come on.
Oh, we kind of needed to do it. We did. We needed to talk about this mass sighting.
Yeah.
And we needed, this Satham's coming in. Nibiru is right over the top of us every day, and Yuri's coming back in, and we're doing this weird planetary twist, and it's all changing, and it's all so close, and it's all so confusing. And yet it's so hugely close, we can't ignore it. So we had to do this show.
Right. Now, one thing I do want to tentatively put out there tonight, Samuel, is, we're all wondering what's going to happen here in California if the major earthquake hits, if we still have internet and there is a major earthquake. Even if it isn't a Friday, I am going to contact you, and we will jump out here and do a special show. What's that?
Yeah,
Does that sound
absolutely.
good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I can do it. I can do a show in a 5-minute drop of the hat. I have no problem with that.
Okay. So just everybody that's
I
in
can
the
do a
window.
5-minute show at Walmart.
Well, I just
I'll
want
stand in
everyone
front
to
of.
know
Yay!
that. I just want everyone to know that's in the window, and anyone that listens to the recording, if there's a major earthquake and you want to know what's going on, we will be out here right immediately that evening and cover it and cover any questions or help anybody in any way that we can.
Maybe I need to get a sandwich board and go to Walmart and stand there and say, "Nibiru is here." I wonder how long they'd leave me out there without, before the police showed up and handcuffed me and took me away. Nibiru is here.
The first thing I imagined was that Homer Simpson when he's holding that sign saying "the end is near." And
the
the
OCG and lead asteroid is crossing right in front of our very eyes, and it's the size of a beach ball at the end of your arm, and it's crossing from one end of the skies to the other, and it's leaving this contrail that's glowing like crazy, and people are going, I wonder what that is. It's like, Jesus, these are asteroids. Wake up, you guys. Christ. And then look, there's ET. Look, there's planets, and nobody's listening. And I've been
Dolores Cannon had said that the ETs that communicated with her said that they were all here watching what we were going to go through because this is a once in a century thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, they're all here.
And that they have all come here to watch the transition of this
planet. I can't express it enough. The immense, numerous reports of the sightings of these hundreds of ships above us, and they're massive. And then they're sitting here next to this excruciatingly large Texas cube on top of it. And I'm going, oh, my God. And then I got 11 live videos coming in all in 1 week that match exactly what I saw. So it's like, shit, come on. They're freaking here. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, my God, you want chocolate icing on top and sprinkles? I mean, and people have to realize it's happening. These are these guys that have been here before, and they're back. And
I'll take the chocolate ice, and you can keep the sprinkles.
Yeah, I don't know why my kids like those chocolate sprinkles. They're hard, and they don't really have anything except, some really bitter-tasting, weird flat chocolate that's been on the shelf for about 3 years. Anyway, yeah. Why the sprinkles, man? It's always I got to pull the cupcakes out 5 minutes before they're done to put the sprinkles on so you don't burn them. Yeah, anyway.
Just makes it extra special, Dad.
A little bit of blob of butter and they'll stick. Anyway, yeah. This sighting it's so huge that people really have got to get a grasp of this, that this shit is really happening. And it's like, oh my God, what are they doing? And I asked my friend Lana today about this, and she was just like, well, they're here for reviewing, which is what you just said. And I said, well, doesn't this concern you that maybe they're going to invade? Like that one freaky movie where the Dracos were landing on the planet and taking over and all of this. And, they don't have to because they already own it. But, I mean, I can imagine that's possibly happening. If they wanted to get the last of a little bit of gold out of everybody's, jewelry box, which is why the prices changed, so that they wouldn't have to. But, I mean, this is seriously, drastically important that these craft have been seen by the numerous count next to the Texas Cube, which we know is real because we've been citing it for, 5 years now? And everybody goes, oh, what's that? It's square. Like, oh, come on, are you serious? You haven't even looked into this yet? I mean, and the thing is that when you talk about little green men, everybody shuts off. Their minds just go blank.
Yeah.
And they go, and then I'll put up numerous Texas Cube pictures, and nobody comments. No one. It's like, come on, guys, get into this. This is real. And nobody wants to because they're afraid to. And once you identify with this and get on board with this and start down the path, then it's easier to talk about. But, extraterrestrials are real. I've met 3 different races. And by God,
Samuel, have you noticed the videos on YouTube of a lot of the news reporters when they're closing their eyes and opening them up? They got like a film eyelid going over their eyes?
That's a bunch of people trying to reach for that fear thing again. But let me tell you that there is a faction that has been introduced to society that is not pure human already, okay? And that is me bending over to the classified, so I have to be careful with what I tell you. There is already a faction that has been introduced for the last 20 years into society that is living among us that are not entirely human, okay? And that part has to do with part of the deal with 1947 and why we're going to have to share our space in the coming future. And I'm not going to tell all of those secrets until you're standing across the campfire from me and I pour you a cup of coffee. Because the thing with it is and a lot of people get mad at me that I don't tell all. Well, I have children to protect, and I would like to remain living for the next 6 months.
Right.
Thank you.
And
if I tell too much of the information that I already know, which, believe me, I'm not making this crap up, then I could be in trouble, and I have to tiptoe. And you know how bad they're stopping me on Facebook already as it is, and my Skype is dead, and my email, I haven't been able to open an email for years, and everything I do is being stopped across the board, and it takes me 10 tries to get on Facebook every day and all of this, and I'm on for 10 minutes. And they
late night coffee and a campfire story is good for me.
So hey, when the shit hits the fan, if you guys want to travel up here, I will tell you everything I know. But over the phone and over Facebook doesn't work because the shit disappears and it vanishes, and I try to share with people as much as I dare. And go ahead and get mad at me that I haven't told you everything, but there's a reason for it, and I'm good at what I do, and I'm proud of what I do. And people need to know that I'm trying to be as honest and as forthcoming and as forthright as I possibly can, but there is a little bit of this information that I have to hold back, and I'm not guessing. It was given to me. And I was told that all of this crap is going to happen, and it's happening. And I swear to God, 90% of what I was told has already come true. So how the hell do I argue with this? I can't. It's happening. And here we are. And you're listening. And here we are. This is for a reason. And people need to get on board with this. And they need to realize that, we're not making this crap up. And it's real. And we've had so many sightings over the last 10 years that we can't argue with it. We know the names of the planets. We know the colors. We know what they look like when they come in. We know what they look like when they pass. We know what happens when they pass. We've seen the cycle after cycle after cycle where during the summer, during the 180-day cycle, that this occurs and that occurs and that occurs and that occurs, and we've had it happen 4 to 5 years in a row. So what we're talking about is pretty much old, boring information, yet the new members are going, oh, wow. And yet this is old stuff to me because we've done this year after year after year. And people they have to get on board with this. This is real. We're not making this up. And
they'll find out, won't they, Samuel?
Well, just because you can't see air does not mean that air does not exist. And a lot of these people, they get mad and they go, well, I haven't seen it and I've looked for 4 years. Well, if you're not looking in the right spot and you're not looking in the dark areas first, if you're looking at the sun, you're not going to see anything. If you're looking at the dark areas as to why the weird sky shadowing, and you start paying attention to that, and you try to understand that it's a sky filler. It's not just this little thing you're looking for. You're looking for something right next to Earth and very, very, very big. And you'll start to see it, and you realize those tiny little clouds are not around Earth. They're around another planet, which is right next to us. Same thing with the asteroids. And all of a sudden, within a half hour, if it gets dark and you have this crazy storm from hell, and then everything in your yard blows away, and your neighbor's house vanishes, well, it's not just a tornado. There's something passing by. There's more to this than people are accrediting. And they need to wake up. Because it's happening. It is happening. And a lot of this information is being held away from you. Look what's going on in Japan. People are dying by the hundreds from heat. People are dying from starvation in India. People are dying all over the world from this climatary changes and climatary migration and all of this. It's not just wars that's doing this. It's weather too. And people are, their village is washing down the street and they've got to move someplace. And so they're searching for countries that have money. And we have to be nice
People are
to those
being
people.
flooded out in America. Cows are getting washed away. When your neighbor is devastated and has no place to go, if you can help them, please help them.
Right. Washington, D.C. got a year's worth of rain in 2 hours.
Yep.
Just last week. And if you can't realize that this is completely not normal, then you need to go back to, Mr. Magoo and watch cartoons and Cartoon Network, or go watch the Kardashians or Maury Povich or whatever, or Dr. Phil or General Hospital. Because if you're here and you're not listening to this, you're silly. Because we've proven it. We've taken 10 years, and that's 2 5-year studies. You can't argue with that. I mean, nowadays, all of a sudden, empirical science is only 5 years, and I chuckle over that. I said, what about a 10-year study? And we've done it. We've got 10 years worth of files and millions of pictures proving each one of these planets coming in, and they got closer and closer and closer. And the asteroids that are underneath them, we've documented them. Right now, the green asteroid is crossing in, and everybody's getting pictures of it. And the lead asteroid is going straight across to Earth, and I don't know why it hasn't pasted us yet, or a lot of it's debris behind it. And then in the last 2 weeks, we've seen nothing but comets and asteroids coming in.
Yeah.
And they've been...
I saw a posting where they said that they finally admitted that there's been an asteroid that's been orbiting our planet that they never knew that was there because of its orbital plan. But
right.
Now they're admitting it, so...
And
yeah,
meanwhile, they're taking pictures of nearby stars. They're talking about how they're taking pictures of solar systems, and yet they can't see what's right next to us. They're using a double negative, and they're telling on themselves. And yes, they cannot see what's coming out of the sun, and that's where everything is coming out of. It's coming out of where the sun is in that direction, because they're rotating. And this addition of Saru coming back, and all the planets are right now, all the major gas giants are in retrograde, and they're behind Earth, and they're all shoved over really hardcore to one side of the solar system, and 3/4 of our solar system is empty, and nobody questions why. Well, that's because there's other bodies that are occupying that space that nobody's talking about, that we've been talking about for 10 years, and they're there. And, you wonder why all of a sudden everything's jammed in one corner of space. Well, it's because the rest of it is full of something else. It just doesn't do that by, and of course everybody's viewing everything off of a computer graphic model, which the information only what they give you, not what is really out there. And of course, on the Earth magnetosphere, and then you watch the live meteors and all this, and you see all this stuff coming in day after day after day, and none of it is accounted for. And yet it's cross-referenced, and all of a sudden, before you know it, that shows that, yes, the hours meet when this planet passed, and on the feedback on the radar was this. And we've proven it time after time after time that this is occurring. And yet after 10 years, I've got 10,000 members, and, maybe 6,000 of them believe it. So
I just find it hard to believe that NASA, this is who said that they saw this massive meteor, didn't know that meteor was out there. Come on.
Well, now we've got to also take into account originally back in the turn of the century, 2000, 2005, 2007, 2008, they were counting roughly about anywhere from 700 to 800 majorly sized objects within our region of space that they were counting and watching on a regular basis, where they allocated resources to watch this. Now, understand that very few resources go to watching for asteroids. It's a small budget. But nowadays they are tracking upward of 20,000, if not more. And there are millions of objects up there that are very large that they're not even talking about because they're not allowed to. Because NEOs, near-Earth objects, are deemed classified. And so therefore you're talking about an entire file group, or a phylum, whatever you want to call it, of stuff they can't discuss. But they want credit for it so they can keep up their funding, but they're not going to tell you where it is. They'll say, it's a light year away. And that way they're covered, not telling you that it's 35,000 miles away and passing every day.
I'm getting warnings that I'm losing my internet.
Oh, okay. Well, we might be losing our internet.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm on that note, I'm going to close out before I lose it.
Okay. let's end the show.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for listening, and keep up the good work, and we'll do a show as soon as we can again.
Yep. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Everybody stay safe and be kind to one another. And
Good
remember, show. Bad Baby loves you.
Good night.